All right, and welcome everyone to another edition of Xtreme Sports. We've been out for a minute, busy on this side of things right now, but as always, we bring you guys what we can when we can, and glad to be back in the house tonight. I am your host, the X-Factor Xavier McKnight. I'm joined by one of my good brothers from high school. Man, it's been a minute since me and this brother got down and chopped it up about sports. Welcome Kory Blackshear to the show. Kory, what's going on, bro?
Not much. Glad to be here.
Yeah, for sure. And man, different times we living in a pandemic right now. I just want to stress to everybody out there, as I've been saying all along, y'all do the things y'all supposed to do, man, because these variants out here now, and it's like, if you get the vaccine, you get it. If you don't, you don't. But at least have enough sense to put on your mask and distance away from people. Do what you got to do so you can protect yourself, protect your loved ones, and so we can come out of this. Because if you don't, that's just the longer we're going to be dealing with this. But a lot of things going on in the world of sports right now, but we're going to mainly stick with the NBA here tonight. And we have new NBA champions, the Milwaukee Bucks. We're 5 days away from the Bucks defeating the Phoenix Suns, 5 days removed, I should say, in the NBA Finals. After going down 0-2 at the start, they finished it off, winning 4 straight in dominant fashion. Giannis Antetokounmpo, 50-piece, 14 boards, 5 blocks, doing it by making his free throws and just playing straight-up old-school bully ball in an era where the three-point shot has just taken over. That was a welcome sight for me to see, just simply because it's not that I'm not a fan of threes. I just don't think that is the do-or-die way to play basketball and to win games anymore. But, Kory, what was your thoughts on the finals overall? I mean, I was really entertained for the most part. All right, are you good? You having some technical difficulties?
Yeah, my bad. I was just about to say I lost you for a second, but I'm back now.
Okay. I was just asking your thoughts overall on the NBA Finals. That was a great showing by two teams that haven't been there in a long time. Shout out to those fan bases too. They brought it every single night.
Yeah, the NBA Finals, it was definitely a welcoming sight to see two, especially two small market teams make it. Two teams that haven't been there in a long time, so to see them come through, put out a good showing. It was a welcoming sight for both fans. Actually gave them an opportunity to see like to experience NBA Finals. I know Milwaukee haven't had a championship since 50 years ago, and
All right, yeah, Kory's still cutting in and out here. Some technical difficulties on his end. That's no problem right there. But as he was saying, yeah, Milwaukee haven't won a championship prior to winning it on Tuesday in 50 years, that Bucks organization. The two legends who were mainly responsible and at the forefront of that championship, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Oscar Robertson, they were in attendance for most of the Bucks home games in the finals. And then you saw old former Bucks players too, like Michael Redd and Brandon Jennings and others who were in attendance. Ray Allen, he couldn't be in attendance, but he did send his well wishes to the Bucks as they were in their quest to winning a championship as well. So much rich history when you think about that organization. So many great players that have come through there. Ray Allen helping lead that team to a conference finals in 2001. They lost in a hard-fought, decisive Game 7 to Allen Iverson and the Philadelphia 76ers. Michael Redd, one of the most underrated players in the 2000s. Guy just suffered some catastrophic knee injuries that really shortened his career, but Michael Redd was a great player in the league. And as I said, just seeing Oscar Robertson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, it was really good to see those two legends in attendance, especially with everything that the world has been through in the past year. Just to see them be able to come out and get to be a part of that celebration, that was really nice. For not only for them to be a part of the celebration, but to also let the city of Milwaukee and the Bucks organization continue to celebrate them for what they did 50 years ago as well. But Giannis, in my eyes, he is now the best player in the league. If I'm going based off of the standards that I judge the best player in the league off of, the criteria that I have, Giannis has it right now. Everybody wants to talk about what he doesn't have in his game, what's missing in his bag. And listen, we know he needs to improve that jumper. If you're not going to improve the three, you got to at least get a consistent mid-range jumper. We understand that, but I'm not going to sit here and take away what this man was able to do with what it was that he was working with. One thing he did differently this time around, and I don't know if this was more of him or if this was more of Coach Budenholzer and that coaching staff. Giannis was not hanging out at the top of the key most of the time where other players are just sitting there watching around, just waiting for him to give him the ball. No, he was doing a better job of moving around in the paint, getting to his spot so he could post a guy up. Listen, DeAndre Ayton had a great postseason throughout the Western Conference playoffs. And he started out the finals on a strong note too. But Giannis is one of those players, because of his size and because of his strength and because of his athleticism, you can't guard that guy one-on-one. And Phoenix, they never really had the size to match up with him anyway. But when they lost Dario Saric to that torn ACL in game one, and when they lost a dog-like player like Torrey Craig in game two, even though he did play more in the series, but you could tell he was really hampered up by that knee injury that he suffered in game two. It really hurt some of the depth out there because, listen, no disrespect to Frank Kaminsky, but Frank Kaminsky's been in the league now for 6 seasons, and he hasn't been giving nightmares to anybody. So I knew that wasn't going to be a problem for Milwaukee to have to deal with. But, where do you have Giannis on your pecking order now?
Sorry, man. Still having some technical difficulties. I heard the majority of what you were saying, though.
That's all right. We're going to keep going. We're going to work through it. I was just saying, where do you have Giannis on your pecking order now?
Ooh. Giannis definitely, he elevated his game, especially in the finals, especially after being down 0-2. It would have been easy to pack it in. I felt like, especially him showing me after that hyperextended leg, I definitely didn't think that he was going to come back. Not doing this, I didn't see this. I saw a lot of stuff that he could do, but I didn't see this. Performance, especially the closeout game, he showed.
Yeah, he definitely did. I mean, for me, I believe that was the most dominant closeout performance I've ever seen in my life in the NBA. It might be the most dominant NBA Finals individual performance I've ever seen. Now, you know, we've seen a lot of them. Kobe had some great individual performances. LeBron's had great individual performances. KD, Steph has had some virtuoso performances. Kawhi Leonard has had some great performances. But to the magnitude of what Giannis was doing, and it's more so of how he was actually playing.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, it's not that he wasn't playing the perimeter game. He was solely doing it by getting down in the paint, getting to his spot, playing bully ball, and playing really effective defense.
He in a way, he dominates the game like how Shaq used to. Except he's more. Shaq was more paint oriented. Giannis could get it, and now Giannis, he can get his own shot from like driving. So like it kind of drives me crazy when I see him take jump shots, just because I know how dominant he is. If I'm Giannis and I see the opposing team guard me one-on-one, I feel that's disrespect. You feel that you can guard me one-on-one. I feel like that's where in mistake.
Yeah, because listen, no disrespect to the players on the Phoenix Suns. No disrespect to
them. No disrespect to them. They did a good job, but I felt like he wore them down over that 6 games. He wore them down over and over and over because Giannis, after he decided to play the game that he's supposed to play, like how he's supposed to play, they couldn't stop him. And if they did try to build that wall, he had shooters. The Milwaukee Bucks have pretty much the perfect team. They build a wall to stop Giannis, and they have shooters on the outside. You put shooters outside, it's impossible just to build a wall. And I felt like he learned a lot from that.
He definitely did learn a lot from those past 2 years for sure.
Because of how he was able to. Yeah, the wall didn't have the effectiveness that it had before because now they I feel like they planned for it. They planned to see 2-3 bodies in the paint waiting on him. You know, even if he did go 1-on-1, they waited for him, and then he was able to make a play off of that. They had good cutters. They had good shooting, especially the game. The game I was most impressed with was, I felt like, Game 5 when they went into Phoenix, and because up to that point they showed it was tough sledding in Phoenix. They showed that it was going to be an uphill battle in Phoenix, especially because of that home crowd and how Phoenix played at home in the postseason. It was going to be
Yeah, they definitely did have stuff going in there. But I will say this right now: the way they closed out Game 5, Drew Holiday with that strip. I mean, like that. Number one, that was bold of him just to even try to make the defensive play the way that he made it right there on Book, because that's usually a foul. And like, if this isn't playoff basketball, that is going to be called a foul. So the refs, they let him play it in some instances right there. But Giannis finishing off of that alley right there, I mean, the way that they finished that game, I was like, oh, this is over with. They are not coming back to Phoenix for Game 7, because it just kind of felt like they had taken the air out of the Suns team, and they also took the air out of that rabid fan base the moment that play happened too.
Right. And I think Jeff Van Gundy had mentioned that. I think he said if this was the regular season and not the playoffs, that same exact play would have been a touch foul, a reach-in foul, or something like that. Like, but the magnitude and what was I felt like they just let them play, and I'm glad they let them play, because I wanted to see that loud in the Game 4 in Phoenix. I'm sorry, in Milwaukee, where they allowed Devin Booker to stay in the game with the touch foul that he had on Drew Holiday. I wanted them to let them play, but still, you know out of the situation. If it's a call in that they would normally make in the first quarter, sometimes they don't make it in the fourth quarter just because of the intensity's ramped up. The crowd's into it. Whatever the case may be. So that game for me took the fight out of. I'm not gonna say took the fight out of Phoenix, but it put them on notice that. Yeah, like, because I always said the first team that wins the first road game in that series was going to win that series. And it proved right, because, like I said, one of them was going to have to show that they could win on the road. It's all good to win at home, but if Phoenix can win one on the road, I felt like they had a good chance. And the same for Milwaukee. But Milwaukee had the experience. That's one thing that a lot of people on Phoenix didn't have, except outside of Jay Crowder or so maybe some of the role players, but the star players, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, never been there before. It's different. Chris Paul being like Western Conference Finals, but the NBA Finals, never been there before, so it was difficult for him. When he struggled. When he thrived, he really thrived. But at the times, his struggles were really costly, especially Game 5 with some of the late game turnovers. Him slipping, turning the ball over, Devin Booker getting stripped at the end by Drew Holiday, it was just a lot for them to overcome. And like I said, Giannis, he showed. I feel like Giannis learned a lot over the past few postseasons. He learned how to adapt to the situation better than he has before. Because this same situation a couple of years ago, I felt like Milwaukee Bucks may have packed it in.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there because listen, huge shout out to Drew Holiday. Because when Drew Holiday officially took the assignment of guarding Chris Paul one-on-one, that officially changed the series because it changed how CP3 had to approach the game. And even though he kept trying to approach it the same way, Drew Holiday made him work. And, we hear all these things about, oh, well, he suffered a few bang-up injuries, during the Western Conference Finals, his wrist, and he was still dealing with that lingering shoulder. I mean, I'm not saying that wasn't a factor, but the fact of the matter is Chris Paul's 36 years old, and that's the 16th season in the league. And Drew Holiday's, he's a tad bit younger, didn't have as much wear and tear on him, had not been injured throughout these playoffs in any way whatsoever that at least we know about. And he was first team all defense for a reason. And he showed it, and he showed why. So big ups to Drew Holiday for how he played, especially on the defensive end. And he had a couple of nights on the offensive end where he showed up big time as well. He had a couple of nights where he had some woeful shooting performances too, but I mean, he covered up for it on the defensive end. Chris Middleton really grew up throughout these playoffs.
Definitely. I feel like I was probably the most impressed with him because, we kept having that, is he an all-star? Is he a superstar? Has he, taken that next step? Has he elevated to become, say they were discussions at, was he number one? Was he number two? Was Giannis his Robin? Or, different cases, because he was more up and down. He was up and down. He would have a really good game, have a bad game, have two really good games, then have a couple bad games. He was back and forth. But back on that Drew Holiday point, that might be that trade to get him was, I think, one of the most important trades in their team history because he brought something they were missing. No disrespect to like Eric Bledsoe, but they were missing that dog. Ain't too many people gonna pick up somebody full court, and hound them the whole time. And I feel like that wore Chris Paul down a little bit just because, previous three series he wasn't getting hounded like that. Not with somebody that strong, not that, who could stick with him on every. He could get over on picks. He was there in his face every single position in his face. So I felt like, sometimes like when you seen Devin Booker bring the ball up, or that was trying to kind of get Chris Paul a little rest to get him off of him, because that's a strong man. And, I seen Drew Holiday in previous series against the Hawks, the Heat, the Brooklyn Nets. Drew Holiday, even when he was shooting bad, his defense never wavered. PJ Tucker, he played his role. He was a great pickup because I felt like that their acquisitions played a major part in this because, like I said, they had stayed put and tried to run it back like from what they had last season. Can't say for sure that I would have seen the same outcome. Maybe I could have seen Giannis, but I really can't say I would have seen how effective he would have been without those pickups just because they played their role. I
think they would have lost to Brooklyn in the second round.
Yeah.
Without Kyrie and James Harden.
Right. I honestly, I mean, it's hard for me to really put them over Brooklyn. Like if we were talking about like going into next season, it's hard for me to really put them over Brooklyn because I still feel like healthy James Harden, healthy Kyrie, and healthy KD. It's really hard to beat them in a 7-game series. No matter the defensive struggles that they have, those three are the top offensive players in the game. And when they're on, they're on because James Harden playing the point guard might be one of the most dangerous players because just think about it. You got somebody that can pass, shoot, get the floater when they want to, lob threat. It's hard to contend with that. And then Kevin Durant might be he's definitely something we've never seen before. That size with the ability to do what he does. And then Kyrie, I mean, it's very little you need to say about Kyrie. He's just pure skill. Like you got basketball players, you got hoopers. He's a hooper. He can go anywhere and get his own shot and create his own offense. So I can't really say I can put them over Brooklyn, a healthy Brooklyn Nets team.
And listen, I'm with you 100% on this because Brooklyn, if they stay healthy next year, that's going to be the key. The health is going to be the key, but it's also the key so that they can properly develop that team chemistry that they need to get. Because with all three of those superstars that you just named, they only played 8 games together. Now, they look good in the 8 games they played together, but it was still only 8 games together. If you give them a full 82-game season and they play at least 75 games for each other and they build that chemistry, it's really going to be a problem, like you said. And, like, no doubt about it, they're coming for blood next year because we all know if KD's toe is just a little bit smaller, we having a different conversation right now because that would have been a game-winning 3 that he would have hit at the end of regulation as opposed to a game-tying shot that took them to overtime where they ultimately lost to Milwaukee in that Game 7.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And like I said, when we had these conversations, like there's no mean to diminish what Milwaukee did or diminish Giannis's like legacy. They did it. But see, this is the problem I have when I discuss certain stuff like this is every team every year that's won a championship has benefited off of injury somehow. No matter what, every team that has won has, and if you look through all the years past, every team that's won, if you go back to the Warriors, the first time around, every team has benefited off of injuries. So if the Phoenix got some lucky breaks. Every series they had someone out. Like I said, it's not their fault. You got to play who's in front of you. It's not it's not their fault that they had, AD hobbled, Jamal Murray hobbled, Kawhi out. It's just that's just the nature of the game because like I saw, it was just like I said, but I see why the playoff ratings were up so much because it was nice to see some fresh faces in there. You at the beginning of every season, you wanna, if you're a small market team, you wanna believe that you have a shot to win, or you at least have a shot to compete. I always say you wanna give your fan base something to be excited about. Like I said, no disrespect to the major markets, but small market teams had to have some reason to believe that they had a chance to compete. Milwaukee, Phoenix, outside of the Clippers, who may have they may have like whatever you want to say, the little brother of LA. Los Angeles still is a big market. It's a big market. So outside of that, the last 4 teams, Atlanta, Milwaukee, LA, and Phoenix, those, 3 out of those 4 teams, those small market teams. And so, I feel like that got cities excited, got other teams excited because it gave the NBA some parity. Now that we have, something that we can look forward to, especially like I said, Atlanta, who's never had any success in the Eastern Conference Finals outside of reaching it in 2015.
And even then, you didn't think they actually had a shot to win. Even when they made it in 2015, you didn't think they had a shot to win at all because it was when LeBron was LeBron, and you just knew like, like, is this going to be over in 4? Can they at least get a game? Maybe they can get 2 games. No, they got swept, and I think a lot of people predicted they were going to get swept. This time around, you honestly felt like the Hawks might honestly pull this thing off and go to the finals.
Exactly. I felt like if it was gonna be possible any year, this year was the year. You know, because I say even with LeBron in 2015, he made people question how good Toronto was. Toronto was a good team that year, and he just like got rid of them. He just got rid of them, made them an afterthought. And they were, that was a team that made franchise history, #1 seed, and it kind of like it didn't even matter. He just completely dominated that franchise over the years. But at that time, I felt like LeBron was a different monster than he is now. He's still a monster, but he has to be more calculated in what he does, being older. He's about to go into, he's about to go into next season and he's going to be turning 37 soon. So, you know, every time when someone has a conversation that he's going to make the finals, he very may well make the finals, but he's going to have some more challenges, just like Chris Paul. The stuff like Skip Bayless said, Chris Paul's also, he's looked in the same series, he's looked like the oldest player on the floor and also looked like the youngest player on the floor. Same, wow, Chris Paul is out there doing stuff like he used to do back in New Orleans time. He also looked like he was like an old man just out there, especially when he was struggling. He just looked like he just, was having it rough. He had to, man, I feel like this was good experience for him because if they do run it back next year, if they do, that's a big if and that's a big if, like I said, on both sides because every team's about to get better, especially through the draft, through free agent moves. They're about to get healthy. And I feel like, a lot of people blame the condensed schedule this season on a lot of the injuries. But a lot of those injuries, I feel like they just, just freak accidents. They could have happened anytime. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like they could have happened on a normal season. It just happens. You can't pick and choose which injuries were, like in different seasons. You can't just say, well, this happened this season because they may happen more frequent because of the condensed schedule. But I felt like a lot of those injuries, they just weren't something that you can avoid. They just happen. So, freak injuries like Trae Young's injury, stepping on the ref's foot, that had nothing to do with the condensed schedule. That just happened, freak accident. Can't do anything about it. Just you wish it didn't happen, but it happened. So.
Right, and like you said, these are freak accidents. They can happen at any time. We see it happen in any sport. It's like you said, we shouldn't necessarily blame so much of the schedule on it, because as much as this was a condensed schedule, this wasn't even the most condensed schedule I've ever seen the NBA have. 2011 and 2012, the lockout shortened season. Now that was something else. That was something else. And like some of the injuries that happened there, I will look at that season and say, yeah, because you had them playing sometimes. You're used to the NBA having back-to-back nights. It was some nights in that season where they were going back to back to back. And that's like, whoa, that's way too much. But yeah, I definitely agree with you there with the whole thing about the injuries. But let's talk about Giannis a little bit more for a second. Because as much as we love the bully ball thing, we know he's got to develop that jumper. He's got to develop that mid-range shot a little bit more. Like, it may have not been a problem in this postseason per se because, like you said, injuries happen and they just took advantage of the opportunity. But as a superstar, you should always be looking to grow and improve your game in any way possible. And to me, him just adding more to that offensive bag of his, that's the last step. Like, that's the one where it's like this dude might start to become unstoppable for real. So what do you want to see from Giannis coming back into next season?
I will say this. If Giannis develops a consistent jump shot to the point where people have to respect him, oh yeah, he's the best player in the world. Like nobody's stopping that man. Like on either side of the ball, he's the best player, like hands down. Because he basically will make it where you can't load up and build a wall. You can't double him because he's 7 foot pretty much. He can pass the ball out of that. You know, and people, like I said, they like to talk about skill. They like to talk about bag and all. If he develops that, he has a full bag. He will have developed everything. He'll have inside, outside, mid-range, you know. And if he gets those free throws to the point where he was making them in game 6, what can you do? What can you do? You just have to sometimes you just got to put your hands up and just be like, you know, you got it. You did this. I can't do anything about it. I can't stop someone who's going to beat me in multi dimensions in the game. Like if he has that many dimensions in his game, nobody's stopping him. And I mean, I'm talking about not LeBron, not KD, not Luka. No, none of the top players are stopping him. Like I said, like he already has a Hall of Fame resume right now. At his young age, he has a Hall of Fame resume right now. If he goes and he develops a jump shot, I don't see why he wouldn't be somewhere close to 30 points per game, you know, maybe 11, 12 rebounds and 5 assists every season consistently, just because there's no way to stop him. There's no way to stop him. He's going to get his points regardless. I feel like, you know, no matter what you do, because doubling him at this point to me feels like doubling like the best, like Luka, LeBron. You know, you run the risk of them having, and they had, like I said, they have shooters. You run the risk of leaving Brook Lopez, who, you know, years ago, Brook Lopez was a post player. He developed his game into a 3-point shooter. You know, sometimes he can get kind of annoying because, like, you know, you see somebody 7 foot, you want them to be in the paint, but that's not what his team's asking him to do. They ask him to knock that open jump shot down when he's open. Chris Middleton, dangerous. Drew Holiday, dangerous. Brent Forbes comes off the bench. He shoots lights out. You know, Bobby Portis, he straight energy all day.
I'm glad you brought him up because to me, that was the X factor in this series right here. That was the Energizer Bunny that Phoenix absolutely had no answer for. Because think about this. When Brook Lopez was in the game at times, that allowed the Suns to continue to just stay into the flow of things because Brook Lopez is not a good defender. And, like, I don't see him play much of the post at all anymore. Like, it's times where he'll turn around and he'll shoot a hook shot or whatever. For the most part, he's hanging around out there on the perimeter. Bobby Portis was just different. Okay, you got to worry about him shooting the 3. You got to worry about him shooting the mid-range. He's not scared to get down in the paint. And he's going to lock you up on defense. That was the X factor of that series right there for me.
Bobby Portis, it was funny because he went from getting a couple of DMPs in the Brooklyn series to him even during the Atlanta series, he showed that he can come off the bench and just spark, just instant energy. Like, not even just with his offense, his defense was crazy too. And like I said, he would, because like you said, whenever you have somebody like that coming off the bench, you look at the other side and you're saying, oh, who do they have to counter him? They had nobody to counter him. You know, it was nobody that was coming off the Phoenix bench that could counter him. And, you know what I'm saying, like you said, Frank Kaminsky, before he got hurt, Dario Saric, he played good. But like I said, it was nobody that came off that bench that can match Bobby Portis' energy. Because Bobby Portis was going to give you a hustle no matter what. Even if he scored 0, he didn't care about the points. And that's why I'm saying, like, for those championship teams, you see, like, how many of them have players that just know to play their role. Like, PJ Tucker doesn't care if he scores 0, if he scores 10. He doesn't care. He just wants to, you know, he's not out there for that. He's there to lock you up, hit the occasional 3-pointer, you know, and you know, bring energy. That's all he's there for. That's all he has ever been in the NBA, even in his days in Houston. All he's ever been is energy, straight defense, energy. And like I said, it's one of those situations where I felt like Bobby Portis, he took advantage because after a while he knew Phoenix had nobody to match him. Like, he's a stretch 4 that, you know, can put the ball on the paint, you know. He can put the ball on the floor and get to the paint, but he can also hit that 3-point every now and then too. You know,
And listen, people who watch the game, like you and myself, we already knew that Bobby Portis had this in him. Like this was the potential that he had in Chicago, but he wasn't with the right set of players from a leadership standpoint per se, and he wasn't with the right type of coaching staff when he was in Chicago. He spent a season in New York, I believe. You know, this was
Mm-hmm.
the perfect type of situation for him right here. And for the Bucks' sake, I really hope they do everything possible to re-sign him because he was very much key in them accomplishing what they just accomplished.
I tell you what, if they don't re-sign him, he's definitely going to get a lot of looks. This he proved his worth because you know, he proved that he can come into any situation and he can make an impact instantly. And it doesn't have to be by scoring the ball. He doesn't demand the ball, a lot. He doesn't need the ball in his hands a lot. Whether he's setting screens or he's rolling to the paint, he doesn't need it. But Bobby Portis showed, like I said, I seen Bobby Portis when he was in Chicago. I even seen him when he was playing in Arkansas in college. He was the same exact way. He just straight energy, whether he was coming off the bench, whether, starting or whatnot. Like I said, he showed me in the series in Atlanta when Giannis was down that he's just that guy. He can, he sometimes get under people's skin, but if he's playing with you, you love him. If you're playing against him, God willing, he has, the crowd behind him because he's gonna feed off of that, and that just makes him unstoppable.
The way he plays reminds me of how Lamar Odom played when he was on the Lakers.
Hmm. Lamar Odom, that is a good example because Lamar Odom, he definitely knew how to affect the game in multiple ways. Because Bobby Portis, I'll tell you another player he reminded me of, and this is just from what I've seen over the years. He reminded me of just a more effective player than this guy that I'm about to mention. But he reminded me of Zaza Pachulia in his tenure with the Hawks. Like, you didn't think Zaza was going to come in and score 20, but you knew he's coming in and he's giving straight up energy, and the crowd loves him. Like, they love him. No matter what he did, he was like one of the most loved players in the time he was with the Hawks. But
And
then
look, when he got to Golden State, he got a chance to really put it up there on the big stage and come out there and provide energy for them in ways that it was much needed. Yeah, we know they had KD and Steph and Clay and Draymond out there, but if you don't have those glue guys, those guys that go out there and do the dirty work, you don't win championships.
no. And like I said, over the years, it isn't like over the years you see and the glue guys can be a starter, they can be, the last man on the bench. But you need somebody that can go in there and, get in people's heads or, you know, sometimes that gives them their mental advantage, getting somebody head, even he scored, like I said, even if he scores 2 points, as long as he don't throw on somebody, the other player, the opposing players, like one of their stars, if he throws them off their game, talks to them a little bit, makes them get out of their element, he's done his job. You can't. That's kind of irreplaceable to me. Like those type of players, you got to have at least one. And if you have two, then you're actually lucky. But you got to at least have one of those type of players on the team. You know what I'm saying, that can be able to come in, instant energy, lock somebody up, or what I'm saying, do something along those lines. Like I don't care if you play 5 minutes or if you played 35 minutes. The impact has to be there. And like a lot of guys in the NBA have it, but a lot of guys don't. So that just goes to show what teams are going to be championship contenders and what teams are just really good. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on all of that there because we saw on some of these teams in the playoffs, they had some of the superstar talent they needed, but they didn't have those glue guys, those guys that get down low and do the dirty work. Let's move on to our last segment here before we wrap things up. Let's talk about the Phoenix Suns here a little bit more for a second because I don't want to take away from what they did accomplish this year. In particular, a huge shout out to Monty Williams and James Jones. James Jones went to 7 straight NBA finals and then retired and went and rebuilt the Phoenix Suns organization. It took a couple of years, but he got that done. And like that's just a remarkable accomplishment. And Monty Williams, God bless him. We know everything that Monty's been through over the years. Tragic accident that happened with his wife when he was an assistant coach with OKC. He never should have been fired out of New Orleans in the first place. He got fired after leading that team to the playoffs. But now head coach in Phoenix again, was sitting on Philly's bench. Philly honestly could have fired Brett Brown and promoted Monty Williams to head coach. I mean that's something to think about for the Sixers organization. But him being able to go into Phoenix and Devin Booker showing up the way that he did in the playoffs. It's an argument out there that, if Chris Paul leaves the Suns, they barely going to go to just being a playoff team. And I'm just like, I don't know about that because, like, these young guys, they have that playoff experience and that finals experience now, and that takes you to another level. And when I look at a guy like DeAndre Ayton in particular, the only thing I'm saying is just get in the weight room and keep working because he can be unstoppable down there as well. If he builds that upper body strength up to the point where he needs to build it up, he can really be a dangerous specimen too. And Devin Booker, I mean, he can put in baskets from anywhere on the floor. Mikal Bridges, a good young piece for them too going forward. Cameron Payne was a nice story, but I knew the buck was going to stop with the Milwaukee Bucks with him as far as the energy that he was providing. But the Suns, they got a very bright future. And if Chris Paul leaves, I don't think they make it back to the finals next year. Even if he comes back, I'm not sure if they make it back. But the Western Conference is kind of wide open going into next season when you think about it. You don't know what you're going to get from the Lakers because of an aging LeBron and an AD that just can't stay healthy. He's never been able to really stay healthy. Kawhi being injured, if not, he's going to be out most of the season next year, if not all of the season with that partially torn ACL. We don't know what's going on in Portland right now. And even if Dame does come back, if they don't reconstruct that team in any type of way, they're not going to make any type of noise right there. Denver, we have to wait and see what's going to happen with Jamal Murray. But the way that they were swept out of the playoffs with Nikola Jokic winning MVP and them not even being able to win a game, Mike Malone is on the clock. And like I was talking about this with a homeboy of mine yesterday, and I'm going to ask you too. Is this a situation where the Nuggets probably messed up and let Wes Unseld Jr. got out of the building and they just didn't fire Mike Malone soon enough? Like, now when I say that, I understand that Mike Malone has taken his team to 3 straight postseasons, including the Western Conference Finals berth last year, coming back from 3-1 down to the Clippers in the bubble. But when you get swept off the floor by a team, no matter what, and you are the team that possesses the league MVP, and I know that you didn't have Jamal Murray, but Jokic still won league MVP and y'all didn't win a game. We've already heard rumors about him being on the clock. If they have an early playoff exit next year, he's going to get fired. And I'm just wondering, did the Nuggets wait too soon to probably go ahead and make that move when they probably could have elevated Wes Unseld Jr., a highly coveted assistant coach, as their next head coach?
Yeah, like I said, those definitely are some good points. I feel like a lot of the teams now get so complacent because you have to look at it like, is this the best that we can get? At the end of the year, you have to look, is this the best that we're gonna do? Because if we're gonna consistently get in top 3 seeds, but we're going out in the second round of the playoffs, do you always you have to evaluate that? And I feel like that they maybe need to make a move because it's just not happening right now. Like you said, the West is wide open, and with it being wide open, this is the time to take it. No matter who it is, if you are a top 8 seed, you have a shot. Even the 1 seeds now are looking like they can be beaten. An 8 seed, especially with a play-in, all you have to do is catch fire, at the right time, and you can beat anyone. But I feel like Denver is caught in that road of we can do better, but how much better? What is our ceiling right now? Because their ceiling right now for me is they're good enough to, they're about a second round, maybe even a fringe, Western Conference Finals team, depending on the matchup. Depending on the matchup, they can make the Western Conference Final. But do I see them as a serious championship contender as constructed right now? No. Like, they have a bunch of good pieces. Like I said, Nikola Jokic, just coming off the MVP season. How much better is he going to be next season? Jamal Murray, how is he coming back? Michael Porter is.
And listen, the ceiling is high for Porter. The ceiling is very high for Porter, but he's going to have to get better on the defensive end as well. That's one of the biggest things.
A lot of people didn't really talk about it as necessary. You said, say that one more time?
I was saying the ceiling is high for Porter, but
Right.
he's going to have to get better on the defensive end.
Absolutely. I feel like I don't care about your offensive game is really good. You can shoot the ball really well. You can get in the paint, but you're a liability at this point. You're a 6. How is he? 6'10", about 6'10". You're a 6'10" liability on defense. That can't be. It's different for a guard to say like they're 6'1", 6 feet, and they're a liability on defense. You're 6'10". We can't hide you anymore than what we already are. Like, if you can't guard, you can't be on the floor when we need you in the late games. We can't have you out there, no matter, because for every 3 points you score or every basket that you score, I'm afraid that you're going to give up another 10, 15. And like I said, for his position, he's playing the best every night. Whether he's playing small forward or even if they go with him at the 4, he's getting competition every night. So, and I mean, like, some of the best they're coming at him knowing, like, I would honestly, if I'm an opposing team, every time down the floor, I'm switching on to him. Like, give me him in a pick and roll, because I know he can't stay in front of anybody. He's not, he has to definitely get in the lab, and he has to address those parts of his game. But as far as, like, I feel like another key part in Denver was Jeremy Grant. His departure left, because what people are seeing him do in Detroit, Jeremy Grant has always he's developed a lot. He's developed into a really great player. But I felt like he was just, waiting for his time to shine in Denver and, be in the 3rd, 4th option. He was never going to be able to be that player. Now that you're number 1 option, it's easy for the mainstream audience to see what he is. That guy can hoop. that brother can hoop. He can go get his own.
Listen, we heard stories around the trade deadline of the Celtics were interested in going to get him. The Heat were potentially interested in putting a deal together to go get him. The Blazers at one point wanted to go get him. It was talks of Denver possibly wanting to bring him back. Like, so we know that he's a force. And a shout out to Dwayne Casey in Detroit as well, because, like, that's a bad situation up there right now. But if anybody can turn it around, it's him, because we watched him go to Toronto when that organization was terrible, and he absolutely turned them around. And to the point where Nick Nurse was able to come in and inherit that, and he got Kawhi Leonard as opposed to DeMar DeRozan, and they went on to win a championship. The rest is history. But let's just say one thing about Jokic real quick, not to take anything away from his MVP. We all know that only happened because it was a slew of injuries that happened throughout the course of the season too. LeBron got injured. Joel Embiid got injured. At one point, Joel Embiid was the definite front runner for that award to me.
He was my MVP before his injury. He was my MVP because he was doing it at a clip this year that I ain't seen him do it like Jokic, and him and Jokic dominate the game, but Joel's is more physical with a blend of skill, because, like I said, Jokic, everyone benefited in some way from injuries this season, whether it was regular season or it was, postseason.
And another name I'm gonna throw out there on a smaller scale. He wasn't really being talked about like that, but Donovan Mitchell, if he doesn't suffer that hamstring injury, he gives him a run for that award, because Utah was the number 1 seed in the West.
And that's a good point. I'm glad you brought up Utah, because that's another team I feel like right now, as constructed, do teams fear them? Not in my mind. I feel like they're a good team, good regular season team, but do they have the pieces? Because that Clippers series, I'm not worried about Donovan Mitchell. I know he can continue to add, but Rudy Gobert, like, multiple defensive player of the year. What can you add? Because, like I said, that series showed me how much a liability he is on switches. They ate him alive, especially, in the very last game, in the closeout game, they destroyed him. They made him almost unplayable. He looked like he just did not belong on the floor to me, because every time, it's different from you playing in the paint, waiting on someone to come to you, or you playing, post defense against a big man. But when you're switched on the guards, that's what makes Joel, one of the best in the league. Because I seen in the series against Atlanta, he was able to switch on to Trae Young and make it difficult for him. He's able to switch on to some of the quicker guards and make it difficult. Rudy Gobert, I don't see that from him. I see a guy that's slow feet, stuck in mud, can't move well. And like I said, to me, it's not about Donovan Mitchell. It's not about Mike Conley. It's not about Joe Ingles or any of the other role players on the Jazz. What he's doing, what can he do to get better to make them a threat? Because right now I feel like people view them as a really good team, but I feel like they reached their ceiling, to me, is second round at best. Second round at best. And that depends on if they get a favorable matchup in the first round.
It really does, because when I look at Rudy Gobert, develop something for that offensive package. There's no fear with him on the offensive end at all, whether he's switching or whether you need him to go out there and get you some baskets. Nobody is fearing him in that way, any way whatsoever. And honestly, on defense, he can be had in that department too, when he's not just allowed to just sit down there in the paint and play the role of the Stifle Tower. When you got a team that's moving the ball the way the Clippers were moving that ball on them, even after Kawhi's injury went out, it's like you said, the ceiling for them right now is second round at best, and it all depends on if you get a favorable matchup in the first round. Because if Donovan Mitchell doesn't come back against the Grizzlies, who knows what that could have been.
Hey, look, my hands are up on that one, because, like I said, if you roll out a lineup without Donovan Mitchell, who's to say that anybody who was in there, whether it was Golden State in that situation instead of Memphis, do I fear Utah regardless of seed? No, I don't fear them. Like I said, we've seen them have a great regular season, but that didn't pay dividends in the playoffs. And like I said, depending on the matchup they get, because luckily they were able to get the number one seed and play one of the winners from the play-in tournament. But if they had not gotten the number one seed, who's to say they wouldn't have been the first round exit? Just because of how the West was, who's to say they ran into a Portland, Dallas? None of those teams fear.
I even think the Lakers would have found a way to take them.
Oh yeah.
Because
even with just LeBron, I felt like they could have dispatched the Jazz easily.
Because even though they had the number one seed, they don't have the firepower that Phoenix had. And it's like when it comes down to Denver, it's with the coaching. When it comes down to Utah, it's you got to add better personnel around Donovan Mitchell. And it is centered around Rudy Gobert. Listen, we all watched The Last Dance. And for as many faults as Jerry Krause had as general manager of the Bulls, mistreating players, not properly taking care of them, those things like that, he did do some things right. And some of the things he did right was he identified that the team needed to get better. He traded Charles Oakley for a legit big man and Bill Cartwright. He moved up in the draft to go get Scottie Pippen. He drafted Horace Grant. Doug Collins was a good coach when he was on the Bulls. Took them to the Eastern Conference Finals. And he straight up was like, no, we need to name Phil Jackson the head coach. And 6 championships later, the rest is history.
But what and it was another thing, like, with like, especially in the last dance you talk about, with Doug Collins, they said Michael said it best. Phil wanted me like to move the ball around within the works of the offense. Doug Collins just wanted to put the ball in Michael's hand and say, go get it. Go get it for us real quick. So like I said, I think Utah is like right now, because since they're not a free agent destination, that's going to hinder them a lot. That's going to hinder their development a lot, because like I said, that's not a major market or not. That's not a free agent destination for a lot of players. They're not looking at Utah as somewhere where I could say I could go spend my career there. It's not LA, it's not New York, it's not Miami,
Not only that, these are not the days of John Stockton, Karl Malone, and the late great Jerry Sloan coaching the team anymore either. It's a totally different organization right now.
Right. They're and like I said, after this postseason run, I feel like they're asking a lot of questions right now. They're asking, they got a lot of tough decisions they got to make over the next few months, because nobody's gonna feel sorry for them coming into next season. It's gonna be I feel like they caught lightning in a bottle, were able to catch the number 1 seed, but it's gonna be tough sledding for them next season.
It definitely is. We're going to go ahead and wrap this up. I want to thank my brother for joining me tonight. Hopefully this is not the last time that he will be on this platform with us. We hope to have him on many more times in the future. Great conversation tonight. Once again, congratulations to the Milwaukee Bucks. Congrats to Giannis. And also congrats to the Phoenix Suns on a good season. On another note here, when it comes down to the Phoenix Suns, we saw Monty Williams go into the Bucks locker room after the game, and he congratulated them on winning the championship. We later found out that he was invited in there to do that by Giannis. But for him to even accept that invitation and go in there and do that, that was really big of him to go in there and do something like that after a hard-fought series like that, and a heartbreaking series, because, I mean, listen, we saw him break down and cry in the middle of his press conference because that's how bad he really wanted to win this championship. So that just says a lot about Monty as a coach, and it says so much more about him as a man and as a person.
Definitely, I agree.
But we're going to go ahead and get out of here. We'll see y'all again soon, coming back with another action-packed episode. For my good brother Kory Blackshear, I'm the X-Factor Xavier McKnight, and this has been Xtreme Sports. Thank you for watching, and we'll see y'all when we see you.
All right, thank you for having me.
For sure.